Okay, we are recording. Andy, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well indeed.
Good, good, good. Where are you? It looks like you're in a front room, but it looks like there's a drum kit in the middle of it and
Yeah,
a grand piano.
I'm at home in Liverpool, but this is my room where I make music. Yeah, so it's kind of it's rammed full of instruments. Yeah,
Nice, nice. Oh, you live in Liverpool?
yeah. I've lived in Liverpool 18 years now.
Oh, right. How comes the move to Liverpool?
Well, my wife's a Scouser originally, so we had
Oh,
our son
right.
moved up here from London. So yeah,
Yeah.
big Liverpool family around me. Lots of football as well.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Andy, I start the podcast the same way
Yeah.
with every guest, and I ask them to tell me the song that they regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Right. Okay. Well, some people may laugh at AC/DC. Some people may think they're a sort of 2D comic, but I happen to think musically they've come away with some of the greatest riffs of all time. And this
Mhm.
song, Back in Black, to me is up there with intros as Beethoven Symphony Number Five. If you think da 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 da, and you think da
Yeah.
da 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 da, it's simple, yet it never tires. It never gets
Yeah.
tiring. It's really complex. Actually, the musicality in it is really complex, which is great.
Absolutely.
So it has to be AC/DC Back in Black. And the rumor is, now I don't know if this is true or not, that all the guitar chords in Back in Black were recorded string by string because it was Mutt Lang that produced it. Now the rumor is so they did the low E string first, down,
Yeah.
yeah, every string was recorded one of them. And if you think when the chords come in, they come in like with a snap. So
Yeah.
I think it might be true.
Wow. I mean, I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you about intros and when Travis first started, the way that people would be consuming their music was as I would. I'd walk down to the record store. I'd
Yeah,
buy my Travis 7-inch single or a little later CDs and stuff and you'd hope that you'd hear these bands on the evening session and that was how you'd sort of get your music out there and get heard and obviously what we've seen now is the importance of things like getting on the right Spotify playlist and also we're seeing other artists utilizing things like TikTok to get their music out there and these kind of trends in it. And so I'm just in a sort of roundabout way, I just want to sort of ask, like in all of these kind of things that have sort of changed over the years that you've been making music with Travis, any of these sort of trends that have come through, have any of them ever sort of filtered through into your creative process?
But nothing filtered through into the creative process before. When it was vinyl, whether it was cassettes or vinyl. I mean, I know when it was vinyl, there's a concern when you're mixing things about how much bass you could have. But apart from that, I think any band just goes in and does what they do. You don't think, oh, how's this going to sound in side B of a record? We didn't think about
Yeah.
that, or where's it going to fit in a CD? You just go and make music. We're always just blindly trying to make the best thing we could possibly make. And I think if anything comes into compromise, that we had a talk with a guy from I think it was from Spotify or something, and he was explaining that you can't have long intros in songs anymore. Because people say, and we were like, okay, well. No, we'll still do songs. If we want to do a long intro, we'll do a long intro. You
Mm.
can't. I don't think you can make good music through thinking about how to compromise it to make it big or to make. Because I think therein lies madness. Anyway, if you try and make a song just to be big, it'll never happen. I mean,
Mm.
it'll sound false. So I think all the great things that become big just become big by not by accident, but by being honest and being true. So no, it's never filtered in at all.
Give us a sort of snapshot as to the sort of creative process of
Yeah.
of going in the studio to write a Travis record.
Yeah, it's a lot more ad hoc than you're thinking. I mean, no, generally we'll have the songs before we go in.
Yeah.
So and for the last two records, Franz wrote both a bunch of amazing songs, and we'd have the songs at home and we'll listen to them and we'll have ideas formulating, and then it really depends who you're working with, where you're working. Like this last record, Tony Hoffer produced it, and he was brilliant because he really took the helm and he sort of he really sort of took that. He was throwing ideas in, which is great for us because this is record 10 for us, and we can make records till they're coming out every years, but they kind of so having someone fresh and someone fresh at the helm is always important. So it changes with each record. It does change, or you hope it changes, because if it doesn't change, what does change?
One of the things that I feel, without kind of sort of veering into me sounding like an old man,
Yeah.
but one of the things that I do see that changes a lot now is there's a lot of people are more focused on cherry picking tracks off of iTunes or going on and creating a playlist on Spotify and it not being the album as a body of work, which is something I miss. And
Oh yeah.
As a band, do you still approach it as an album, as a piece of art, as a body of work? And also the other thing I feel is lost is album artwork, because now it's just this little thing on your phone. Do you still put the same thought process and passion into it all?
Even I think with the new record, Early Times, we really put a lot of effort into it. We got back in the photographer that did The Man Who. It's a series of photographs basically. So this is a fourth in a series of photographs. You know, The Man Who was in the morning, the Invisible Band was in the just after lunchtime, the Boy with No Name was in the early evening, and this is at night time. So it's actually a collection of photographs of the band. So we put a lot of thought into it, and I think now, if you're going to actually sell records, it's probably going to be the cover that sells it, because everyone's got the record anyway, haven't they? Yeah. So it's, you know, with the resurgence of vinyl, I think people are buying it to own the object itself.
Yeah.
And with the sense of albums, we still make it like an album, because you've got to. That's kind of like the art form we grew up listening to anyway. Yeah. But there is still people that listen to that. So if you don't do that, you're letting them down. You're doing them a disservice. And kind of, I think it's sort of coming around again. I keep saying, you know, I think there should be a Spotify where you just have 10 albums a month. Now you can pick from everything, but it's more like a library card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, we used to get 5 books a month in the library or something. It's like that. So, because at the moment it's too overwhelmed. I mean, I love music and I know exactly what I like, but sometimes I go into Spotify and get overwhelmed. It's like, you know, when you go on holiday and you have those all-you-can-eat buffets? It's like
such a good shot.
And you end up with a plate that's full of like sort of, there's a bit of salad on it, there's a bit of like sort of Chinese food, there's a bit of Indian food, there's a bit of like, you know, some chips on there as well, and it just becomes a plate of nothing. You know what I mean? Because it's just, whereas if you just had a plate of like sort of like, you know, sort of Indian food, it would taste delicious. You know what I mean? And it's kind of, that's what we're doing with music. We're just getting a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of this, and we never listen to anything with the full sort of intention of a meal. You know, you're not getting the nourishment that bands intend you to have.
Yeah.
So I think it'll come back round. I think people are beginning to want an album again.
Yeah.
I hope, anyway, you know.
Yeah, I hope so. Andy, tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please, mate.
Well, it's weird, because I mean, as you can tell by AC/DC, I was like a total rock kid when I was a kid. You know, I was like, my first gig was Status Quo when I was 12, and I had the denim jacket with patches. and weirdly, that. But I'll digress before I go on. That's another thing that I miss. Kids don't define themselves by one form of music anymore. You know what I mean?
It's so weird, Andy. I run an alternative nightclub and have done for 30 years. And from first going in there, and there'd be goths over there. There'd be indie kids over there. There'd be like ravers there. And it was all very, very tribal. And you know, throughout the 90s and the early 90s as well, you had like new metal, and you had like, you know, obviously like the whole Britpop scene exploded, where everybody's wearing, you know, you could see someone down the road, exactly, and you could go, I know what records they're like.
You know what music, especially when you were like 12 to 18, you would know what music they were listening to, because you defined yourself with it. And I feel young people are being denied that sort of chance to go, are trying to be someone. It's your first chance to try and pretend to be something, you know. And I think people did that through music, and young people don't anymore. So I think we missed that anyway. But I was a rock kid, so I had the little patches all over my denim jacket and everything. So music wasn't really about emotion so much for me till I was a bit older. You know, it was about sort of, it was a visceral thing. It was more like sort of, you know, Viking thing of galloping through valleys like that. So it wasn't until I was about 16, 17 that I started getting an emotional impact from music. And it was friends turning me on to Joni Mitchell and the band and Bob Dylan and things. And I distinctly remember being dumped. And sort of like, it was walking about all night. I don't know if you ever did that, where you just wandered about all night until the light came up. And I remember the light coming up, and I had a cassette player, and it was Chelsea Morning by Joni Mitchell, which is a beautiful song.
That'd do it.
Not necessarily a heartbreaking song. It's not necessarily meant to be a heartbreak, but it just resonated with that time in the morning, with how I was feeling. And it's the first time I really remember, oh my God, this is making me feel worse and better at the same time. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it, when like you hear a record, and like you say, the scenario and probably your mindset that you was in as well, and that generally happens in your youth, doesn't it, where it all sort of falls into place, and it's like then suddenly the music just is a different level to it has been before, and that's such an important moment, I think.
Yeah, well, it's suddenly, rather than just listening to it, it serves a function in your life. It's a placeholder in your life, and it's doing so. It's actually doing something for you. You know, it's going, okay. This will make you feel less alone, almost. You
Yeah.
know, so that someone else has felt this before. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? No one has ever felt like this. You know, even though every person on the planet has felt like that, but at that moment, it's like,
you've got to have that. You know, yeah.
No one understands me right now. Oh dear, oh dear. That's that. I think, you know, so many people. I mean, you must have had sort of so many sort of instances where people have come up to you and said, your songs have had this.
At funerals, at weddings, at birth, you know, and that's great, you know. It's like that our songs have resonated with someone else in that way is really, really, I find really touching and really special, you know. And I love hearing that sort of things, you know. It's like, you know, there's one indefinitely, like just an album track, an Invisible Band, but I had a lot of times people were saying that they'd had it on their birth tapes and things because it's quite sort of chilled song. But it's got my favourite line that Fran ever wrote, which is "Time exists, but just on your wrists, so don't panic." You know what I mean? And I think that's a brilliant line to be played to you when you're getting born into this world. It's like, time's lovely, but don't worry about it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, how beautiful. You mentioned that you was a rock kid, you know, in your Quo jacket and stuff. Tell us a little bit about where home was and was it a musical place?
Glasgow, yeah. I mean, Glasgow's a very musical place, you know. It was funny. I mean, I was adopted, and the only thing they knew about my mother was my natural mother. She was in an orchestra, so kind of it was always really encouraged when I was younger. You know. And my mum said I was very, very, you know, I was attuned to music. If music came on, I'd go towards it even when I was a little kid. So from a young age, I had like just an old upright piano in the house, and I just used to sit and play that. And then when I was 12, you know, I started getting into the rock, and I started getting a guitar, and it was just always music was my happy place, you know, and I was never into football, you know. And Glasgow's quite an intense football place, and I couldn't find my way into that, you know, as a kid. And so music was totally my go-to. That was a place, that was my refuge from the world, you know. Yeah. Quite an odd little kid, but you know, most of us musicians were quite odd little kids in some way.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, Glasgow was great, and like I say, the first gig was Status Quo, and that was at the Apollo. That was the year, I think, it was the year before the Apollo got knocked down. And it was an amazing venue, the Glasgow Apollo. Like, kind of, it was an iconic place. And for Status Quo, they'd done a live album there years previous. It was one of their favourite places to play. So it was an amazing night, man. Me and my mate, we were 12, and then my mate's dad took us. And he stood at the back of the Apollo and went, on you go, boys, just go down the front. So we we sort of eased into one of the aisles, and these two bikers put us up on their shoulders. And we sat on bikers' shoulders for the whole gig when we were 12. And it was like probably dodgy these days, but actually at the time,
it was mate, life don't get any better than that. That's fantastic.
It was fantastic. And I remember thinking, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to be in life, you know?
And it's weird. I went to see the Pet Shop Boys in Hyde Park, and they were just headlining one of these kind of like Radio 2 in the park things, and so there was loads of other artists on there, and Quo were on there, and I probably wouldn't have bought tickets to go and see Status Quo, but I was like, look, Quo's coming on, it's Quo.
Yeah.
Fucking hell, man! They've got so many tunes that I totally forgot about, and as soon as they played Dan Dan, it's like that's a fucking tune, man.
There's some bells in there. I'll still go there sometimes, and people will knock me for the gold. You know what? There's some real nourishment in there.
Absolutely. Well, look, let's stay in the formative years for the next track, mate. And can you tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please?
Right, okay, well, it's quite distinctive, and this was in secondary school, and it was the REM document came out, and then It's the End of the World as We Know It, and you know, we used to have arguments over what it was back in the day when you couldn't see the words. It was pre-internet, you know, it was pre like having words in the record. We'd argue over what this record said, and I loved that. You know, and I remember we drew it around one of the walls in the school. We got a lot of shit for it, you know what I mean? But right, once we'd sort of agreed on what the words were, I know we still had it wrong. I mean, I've only found out subsequently. But you know, we'd write the words out because it was so many words in that song. Yeah. And you know, and from then, and here's the weird thing, right? Okay, because I lecture music in a couple of places, and kids these days don't seem to trace back music. They've got the whole recorded music in their pockets, but they don't, you know, if they're listening to Taylor Swift and that, well, do you know what she was influenced by? And no. Whereas with It's the End of the World as You Know It, that would take us back into like Subterranean Homesick Blues by Bob Dylan, and that would take you back into Too Much Monkey Business by Chuck Berry, and you would trace back all these songs, you know. Yeah. So that one song opened up a whole load of doors for me, you know, and so it's great, you know, just from hearing that and going, okay, I want to hear more things like that, you know. And it was harder in those days, as you were saying. I mean, there wasn't Spotify. I had like 3 records when I was a kid, and I used to go around to my mate's house because he had a different 3 records, and it was like a social sort of circle sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that one record, and I remember getting documented. Wow, this is such a good record. But it's the end of the world as we know it. That really reminds me of school days.
I think Document turned 40 this week.
Was it? Wow, yeah.
Was it 40?
Yeah.
Finest Work song is on Document, isn't it? Yeah.
DJ, yeah.
Yeah, it turned 40 this year.
Oh,
this week, sorry. Like, what a record that is, man.
Oh, it was unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it's got One I Love on it as well, which is, you know, masterclass in simplicity.
Yeah. Just they're arguably my favourite band. I adore them.
Before they split up, I think it was in the last year or two, we got to play with them in South America, and it was just such a pleasure to watch them play on stage. Such a big band, man.
Right, because they quite famously refused to ever put their lyrics in sleeve notes.
Yeah, and brilliant for it. You know what I mean? As I say, we used to have a talk, you know, arguments about, and it would give your songs more longevity, I think, because you'd argue, you know, and even now, funnily enough, we were playing it the other day, just when we got together as a band, and we were like, what's that lyric? And we had the lyrics up and we're like, oh my God, I never knew that was that. You know what I mean? You'd said your own things for years, you know, but that's the beauty of it, you know, because I think when you release a song, it no longer belongs to you.
Yeah,
it belongs to, you know that song belonged to me, you know, and it was my version of that song, and I've got my version of the lyrics. And no matter if you print out the lyrics that what they're meant to be, I'll still say no, it doesn't say that. You know, it says David Croft. You know what I mean? I know David Croft, but you know, like there's bits in there. You're just like, you know, that belonged to me. You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I've probably 100% singing the wrong words to that.
But that's it. That's you. I love the fact that different versions of that exist in different people's heads.
Absolutely.
I was always fascinated by, you know, the Terry Riley piece of music in C. And it's like it's a series of cells of music. So it starts with like one sort of 2 notes you can play, and then there's sort of 3 notes you can play. But you go through all these notes in different. So 10 people can play it.
And what's this? Teddy Riley, the producer.
Terry Riley, is a composer.
Right.
Terry Riley, he was a 60s minimalist composer. And then, but he wrote this piece of music, and every time it's played, it's different because musicians can go through from cell 1 to cell 2 to cell 3 to cell 4 at any pace they want, as long as they play them all to the end.
Right, yeah.
It's completely different. And I'm fascinated by music, but that's the same with songs. Every time you listen to It's the End of the World, as you know, it's different to what I listen to. Yeah? It's different pieces of music to different people.
Absolutely. And just the harmonies as well. The Mike Mills. I presume he says time I had some time. Oh, we're singing the same words there, mate. Yeah, I thought they were the words as well. I mean, in the talking about school a little bit. Was it something that you enjoyed, and did you know what you wanted to be when you were at school?
Well, I mean, the 3 of us ended up in art school. So when I was in school, kind of the whole sort of thing was trying to get into art school. Yeah, but I mean, I was playing in bands and things. You know, the band that Travis became started in school. You know, there was 2 bands in my school. I was in one band, and we were like sort of slackers, and we played Velocity Girl by Primal Scream and all these like, you know, old Rolling Stones songs. We had Vacuum Cleaner songs, and the other band were really professional and played U2 and Simple Minds. And my band fell apart because, you know, we were always a bit stoned or whatever, you know, and couldn't get to rehearse. So I joined the other band, the professional band, you know, and that through the years changed until that became Travis. So that kind of that started in school. So I was into music, but kind of the goal was to get to art school. It was, you know, so you're doing your portfolio and things. And then me, Fran, and Dougie were all at art school at the same time. Right. And then when we were at art school every Friday, we'd just go and play music. And that became more and more how we bonded, you know. And you know, being an artist is great, but it's a very solitary life. Whereas being in a band, you've got a bunch of mates together, you get to travel around with, you know. It's kind of something cool about that.
Was it encouraged at school, music?
No. I think I used to bunk off music in school. You know, it was a different thing. It wasn't my music, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I think even I've seen my son do it. Dylan's 18 now. He did GCSE music, and it's still like sort of they're studying stuff that isn't relevant to that. And I can see you need to know all music, but you need if you're going to teach like sort of Beethoven, you need to teach in a way that people can see the line from that to AC/DC, rather than just going, this is it, learn it, and things like that. And I still don't think it's doing that where you can. It's still not being made interesting for kids a lot of the time,
And as you talked about when you kindly sort of evolved into Travis, and what were the bands? You just mentioned Primal Scream there, obviously, at that point, a really successful band from Scotland. What other bands, because for me, growing up in Essex, I'd look at Depeche Mode and these bands that had all gone on to think, and it was like, all right, there is a chance that you can make it in a band around here. Like, what bands were you looking towards going, look, they've done it, we can do it?
I mean, we'll mention them later on, obviously, but Teenage Fan Club were the ones that we were very much in the sort of slipstream of, a successful band from Glasgow, doing it on their own terms as well and things like that. Yeah. And they were very much so, and they were very good to us when we were coming in through. They sort of lent us gear and things when we were like in rehearsal rooms and sort of like when we were recording and things. They were, and still know them to this day, but they were really, really nice to us. So there was that. There was a Big Country when we were younger. It was a fantastic band. We used to go and see them in the Barlands, and it was just the most amazing night. But 2,000 people just bouncing in unison for a whole evening, and it was just the most visceral, exciting evening of your life, to go to see Big Country. So and Scotland's got, and even like growing up, music was always a part of our lives because it was always like, an uncle that would bring a fiddle along, and it was like, folk sort of songs being sung and things. It was music was very much a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
As soon as the drink came out, the songs came out usually.
Absolutely. Tell me the first record you remember buying from a record shop, please, mate.
And I'll stand by this one, "Bright Eyes" by Art Garfunkel, which is a beautiful song, and it's weirdly right. The first two records, so like the first single I had was "Bright Eyes." The first album I had was the Wombles.
Mike Back wrote them both.
Exactly, that's it. And I only put that together about sort of 10 or so years ago. I'm like, shit, I'm the biggest Mike Back fan there is in the world.
I had him on here about in lockdown, and he's the only person that's ever turned up to do this podcast at a piano, and every time he referenced one of his songs, he just he was tinkling around the ivory. He sang a bit of Bright Eyes for me and everything. I was like, man, this is pretty special.
I've played a bit of Bright Eyes for you.
Yeah.
I've sat and played it before. It's such a beautiful song to play. It's really well put together. It's one of those things that's it's a nice song to listen to, but when you take it apart, when you lift the bonnet and that, there's loads of lovely stuff being done there that you wouldn't actually recognise. He's very good that way. He can do things that are emotional, but they're still intelligent underneath, and that's a very difficult tightrope to walk in music. And so it's an amazing song. I mean, obviously, Art Garfunkel's not the coolest artist in the world,
mate, but that voice, man.
Simon and Garfunkel, I'll still stand beside some of those songs. Are amazing. It's
ridiculously good.
Yeah, and then but Bright Eyes, I'll still put Bright Eyes on occasion. I think that is what a song that is. Yeah. And also, the film was an emotional impact on most people our age.
Jesus Christ! You can't hear that song, without picturing,
the dead rabbit float through the sky, the ghost floating through the sky, and everything like that.
Jesus Christ, man!
I think all people of a certain age bear emotional scars from Watership Down.
Absolutely, and you talk about that connection between music and visuals. The minute you said Big Country. Straight away, my entry point to them was the film Restless Natives.
Restless Natives, a fantastic film, yeah.
And that was my intro to him.
The bit where they sort of kickstart the bike and they're going through Edinburgh throwing the money out. And
is it Look Away?
Yeah.
Amazing. I'd love to revisit that film. I've not seen that film since I was a kid.
It's aged a little bit, but it's still brilliant. I watched it about 1-2 years ago. Yeah. It's not easy to find. I think you can find it on YouTube or whatever, but yeah.
Oh, love it. Tell me a little bit about the record shop. I asked about the sort of, your first records you bought. How important were record shops for you growing up? And tell us a little bit about your relationship with them now, if there is still a relationship with them.
Weirdly, there wasn't a lot. I mean, I grew up in like a little town outside of Glasgow, and there wasn't any record shops there. My first sort of experience of seeing records was used to go to like the card this place Macro. It's like the Costco of its day or something.
Yeah. We got them in Essex Macros.
Yeah. And they used to have like bargain basements at records. You know what I mean? You know, the ones with the corners cut off and the vinyl. Yeah. And I used to just go through that because I didn't have a record shop to go to. You know, so that was my go-to. So I would always have the shittest record by any artist. It wouldn't be like Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. It'd be Midnight of the Lost and Found or something. You know, like sold 10 copies. You know, that was my first experience of music. But then, you know, then we sort of like when I was old enough, I'd go into Glasgow and you'd go like round Fob started and things like that. All these record shops and that was just like whoa. I remember so this would be when I was in art school. So this is probably about 19, and seeing Boy Child by Scott Walker. Now I'd never heard Scott Walker's music. But the cover of Boy Child is this amazing, it's a white cover with this amazing picture of Scott Walker, and he looks like cool and handsome and just like sort of debonair. And so I bought it, and me and anyone I hung about with had never really listened to this music before, and put it on, you're just like that. Oh my God! It's you know, and it's suddenly because it's the best of as well, so that a whole new world opened up. With Scott 1 to Scott 4 was just suddenly all opening up in front of you. So yeah, you know, the record covers brought me into music. Sometimes just like going through record shops and everything. So yeah, fantastically important.
What a lucky pick! Like, what's this? This looks cool. And like,
there was twice in art school we were incredibly lucky with music. So there was Scott Walker, and then one day when we were in art school, there was flyers put around, and he said, and this was before Grace. He said, Tim Buckley's son's coming to sing, and we were and we'd all heard of Tim Buckley, but you know, but Grace wasn't. Nobody knew who Jeff Buckley was. There's about 100 people in the art school bar, the Vic Bar, and it was quite a rowdy place. Everyone's sitting drinking, and this sort of handsome guy comes in and starts. He sets up himself, microphone, just guitar, starts singing. Bang, pin drop silence for an hour. Just everyone's like that.
Fuck.
He sang for Jeff Buckley sang for an hour, and I've never heard anything so spellbinding in all my life, and so surprising because we just didn't know what was coming. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a bit.
Scott Walker and Jeff Buckley. You can't get better than that.
Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Education.
Well, I guess college and uni, you know, normally with that comes drinking and clubbing. So tell me the song that soundtracked your year's clubbing, please.
We used to go to like the under-18 clubs as well before we hit uni. You know, there was some club in Glasgow had an under-18s, and we used to go to that, and that was the early days of acid and things running through. But the one song I remember, and this could easily go for the best intro yet. This could go for song number 1 as well. Was "Delight Groove Is in the Heart," and it's just so joyous. And I've listened to this record now, but over 30 years I've been listening to this record, and it's still just, you know, when I was doing this, when I was asked to do this list of songs, I put it on obviously, and I was walking down to the shop, and I was like dancing down the street, and you're like that still makes me as happy as it did the first time I heard it, and it still makes me dance, you know, and that's what a great dance record does, and it's got that break that stop, oh no, does, you know, it has so many delightful bits in this song. It really is. It's just, I think that's the word I would say. I know they're called delight, but it is delightful.
Yeah. And it's one of them songs that you can drop that in any club, any club. Any age person, completely. And the, you know, an obvious word, the groove is so fucking great. It's so infectious. And I remember obviously when that come out, and also, you know, I guess it was around the time of the sort of, I guess acid house happening and the
exactly. Sort of, it was just the back of that,
yeah, and the sort of daisy age hip hop stuff that was happening with De La Soul, and then all of a sudden you see Delight, and Lady Miss Keir looked like something from some amazing 60s film. She looks so cool.
You still picturing a video in your head right now?
Of course I am. Yeah, you know, as a 15-year-old lad, that was all I wanted. It was amazing.
You know, there's nothing that hasn't sort of aged well about that record. It just is so brilliant. It sounds like it could have been made yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think it is? Because I often have this sort of conversation with guests about songs that sometimes get chosen on here. I've never had this conversation with Delight. You're the first person in 540 episodes to choose this, so I'm glad you have, because it's such a great record. But the songs that get chosen are generally ones by bands that are very successful, but they have this one song that doesn't sound like their other songs. So, for instance, them ones that could drop now, Fool's Gold's been thrown at me so many times.
Oh, yeah.
How Soon Is Now?
Yeah.
She Sells Sanctuary. These songs that don't necessarily sound the Cult, maybe a bit more so.
But they don't totally fit within the
Yeah,
yeah.
But they all sound like, if you drop She Sells Sanctuary now on the radio, people will be like, wow, I need to get this. When did this come out?
It's still fantastic. Yeah. These songs they're timeless. And I think that's the thing about dancing. You know what I mean? I think we've been dancing since we were started. It's a natural thing to do. Animals dance, you know. It's everyone likes a bit of and it's primal, you know, it's just like so when a song like that hits you, it never goes away. You know what I mean? It hits you on a much more sort of deep level than say something that, you know, you just sing along to. You know, it's kind of because it makes you move, you know.
Yeah. What do you think that's the ingredients that make them some songs just sound completely timeless?
Yeah, I think so. Because it hits you somewhere. It hits you somewhere that it's not your head. You know, like a lot of songs, I like them, you know, and I'll appreciate them and I'll sing along with them. But they're head songs. But dance songs are dance songs aren't even your heart. They're not making you upset. It's almost like your stomach. The songs for your stomach because everything's moving around like that, you know. And it hits you in this really deep place that just will be unshakable.
Yeah. I'm going to take you home for track 6 and ask you to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
Oh, well, we're back to Teenage Fan Club because it's the concept by Teenage Fan Club. And so we're almost going full circle here. References Status Quo as well, you know.
Yeah, of course.
And funnily enough, I was talking to Joe McClendon last week, and it's Joe McClendon did the strings at the end, and he's, you know, who was from Superstar, and he did the strings for that album, and he's one of the greats in Scotland as well, one of the really inspiring people. It's just such a great song. But them as a band were just such a great band. They're just, I don't know. There's an effortlessness to it. It's just like, here's a song, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, do you want to listen to this? Here's the best song you've ever listened. But it doesn't sound like they're trying at all, you know. And I love that. They're doing something so good, and it sounds as if it's just the easiest thing in the world to them.
Yeah. Just really beautiful little pop melodies as well, I think.
Oh, yeah, you know, and it was, you know, 3 writers in that band, 3 amazing writers, you know, who all could pick up, you know, like them, and we're all thrown off, you know, when they were at the race, thrown off the most amazing songs, you know, that run of albums from there through Grand Prix and everything, were just 13 amazing albums. Was
that like huge for you, like Bandwagon-esque? When that dropped, was that just like a game changer?
That was a big deal, yeah, you know, and that's when Glasgow music started, you know, the Bells Hill whole thing started really sort of like taking off, and we were never part of that. We came through like way after that. So, but you know, to us looking at it, we were just like, right, okay, it's all bets are on. You know, anyone can do it. You know, it's like you said, you know, it gives you the inspiration that this isn't something that just happens to other people. This could happen to you. You know.
Yeah. Concept's got fucking that intro's the bollocks as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the intro, everything about it.
Yeah,
it's a great record.
Yeah, I think one of them lives down my way now. Lives in Southend.
Oh, right, does he? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. Who is it? It's not Norman.
He was in Canada for a while, I think, even or something. But yeah, I think he's back now. But yeah, no, but they'll be scattered about probably.
Yeah,
We're scattered around the world now. So
right. Okay, so this is your last track, and I'm going to ask you to tell our listeners about a song that you think many may not know, but you'd like them to hear.
Now, here's the thing about this. Usually you'd be going, okay, you know, I've listened to this track since I was 16. I heard this track for the first time last week.
Right.
And you know, I'm of a certain age now. You know, I'm getting on, and it's rare that I'll hear a song. And this is an old song, and it's rare that I'll hear a song that I've never heard before. That's like suddenly like that. This is amazing. What is this? You know what I mean? And it was the guy I was playing with in the session, Mike. He's in a fantastic band called Champ, and he's a great musician, but he's really into his music as well. And we were having one of those nights, you know, you're sitting around the kitchen table, having a few drinks, and sort of like putting on things like, oh, what about this? Oh, what about this? You know, and some great songs were getting played. And this song, he put a song on by the Roches. It's the 3 sisters, and it's called the Hammond Song. And produced by what's his name from King Crimson?
Robert Fripp.
Sorry, Robert Fripp. Yeah. Robert Fripp plays the Ebo guitar and everything. That whole album was produced by Robert Fripp, and I was just like that. Oh my God, how come I haven't heard this before? You know, and I suddenly felt like a little bit sad that I'm only going to have it for so much of my life that I didn't have it because it's from the 70s, you know, late 70s. Yeah. It's just fantastic. It blew me away last week, and I love the fact that it gets harder the older I get for music to do that. Because, you know, when you're young, the tank is like, you know, you got a big tank to fill up full of songs. So anything you throw in, you're like, this is amazing, you know, and you're swimming about, like the tank's up here now, there's about that much left, you know, space. And then, but this song, it's gone in the tank. It's one of these songs, I'm like, oh my God, this is so good.
I'll let you into a secret, mate. It was about maybe 2 years ago that my mate went to me, have you heard this? And I was like, no. He went, have a listen. And I was like, how have I not heard this? And like, it is incredible.
Oh, yeah, beautiful. And the three different voices, and the way he sings a verse and it changes key so they can sing their verses, and the way it changes key up and down, and everything about it. And then Fripp's guitar sort of snaking in the middle. Oh man, really, I was like that. I've lived a shelter. I've suddenly felt like I'd lived a sheltered life. I hadn't heard this one song before, you know.
That's the one that every person I've played that to has then gone, shit, man. And I'm like, I know. Like, and it's really weird. I was having a conversation a couple of days ago on an episode, and another band, Scottish band, funnily enough, has kind of got a similar thing where a lot of people, probably not outside of Scotland, I would imagine, don't know them. But then the minute someone goes, have you ever heard Blue Nile?
Oh yeah,
and then everybody's like, "Oh my God, they're my new favorite band," and it's so strange, man.
That voice. Oh yeah, man. Oh, what? Funny enough, I think Dougie lives quite close to Paul Buchanan. He says he bumps into them in the supermarket and things like that.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. That's the one that sort of pops up quite a lot. It's just like, you guys have Blue Nile, and I'm like, yeah, like, but again, I was slow. I was late to it as well. It's just,
it's the Blue Nile's like a club for people that are really into music.
Yeah. It feels like that.
Oh, you've joined the club, have you? Yeah. Excellent.
But the Roaches is in that gang. The Roaches is in that gang.
Fantastic. But I do love that music's still coming at me. You know, sometimes you think, oh well, you know, that's me. I've built my wall now.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I can see the brick there. I can see the bricks at the bottom that made it up. You know, when we're talking about music, you think about a wall being built, and it's like Status Quo and Iron Maiden bricks at the bottom, and then there's like sort of Joni Mitchell, Bob Dylan, you know, down there, and then as you get up closer, you build an REM on top of it, and all these things, and you're like, the wall's not finished yet, and that's really beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're right. You know, that kind of getting blown away by music is sort of few and far between these days, and so when it happens, it's special, right? And
it's hard because if you've seen the Sahara Desert looking at a beach, it's like that. Well, we say, you know, it's a little version of that. You know, the more you've seen, the harder it is to be impressed, isn't it? Sometimes.
And when you find a song like that Roaches track, how do you sort of form your relationship with that? Do you? Because for me, I then listen to it 30 times on the bands and try and work out, oh my God, not break it down to sort of as a musician, but just like, oh my God, why is this so amazing? Like, how do you do it?
I listen to it almost non-stop. I'll watch like all the different versions of it, YouTube Live and things, to try to get sort of like, you know, where they were coming from, you know, and then I'll sort of learn. I will learn it, you know, learn the chords, and I'll learn what it's doing and things, and I'll spend a month probably doing that.
Yeah.
And then it'll just enter into the tank. You know, I think it's like sort of like polishing up the stone before you put it on. You know, it's just
absolutely
learning, you know. And I will, and I'll totally obsess about it. And I'm still in that stage at the moment where I'm totally obsessing about it. And that's the thing. I mean, not just, you know, people complain about like Spotify or any of these things. You know, I think as a tool, it's fantastic, because, you know, we could sit around the kitchen table and that track could suddenly come on. And I think it's a tool. It's fantastic. I think we've got to learn how to use it properly. You've got to learn how to love albums still again, you know. And it's, as I say, it's quite overwhelming. Even sometimes I'll go on Spotify, and it is like walking into a hangar with all music that's ever been made, and you're like, oh, okay, what we're going to do here? There's ways around that, but as a thing, we're in a very lucky age where I can listen to almost any song I want to listen to, right? And I love that.
Can you imagine if the 14-year-old you had that?
Oh yeah, and imagine someone handed you an iPhone at 14, or like any sort of, you know, these things, these devices, and said, right, you can listen to any song you want to in this. You'd be like, that. You're a wizard or something, you know. we do live in a lucky age where you can do that. I just
Yeah.
think we haven't learned how to deal with it yet. You know what I mean? And how to. I think that you almost need to be trained on how to listen to music on Spotify.
Yeah.
You need like a couple of months training. You know?
Yeah.
Like, this is an album. This is how you listen to it. It's funny. Dylan, my son, he's 18 now, and 2 years ago he got a record player. And what I loved about that was not only you're listening to albums and things like that, but I was like, you're sitting in one place and listening to music. Because we used to sit and listen to music on speakers. And very, very rarely do people do that. Now, everyone's in their own little cathedrals of sound, you know, and that's fine. But music should be a communal thing. And I think when you have speakers and say these mates come around and they sit and listen to record, they're all in that same space and they're all listening to the same thing at the same time.
And you know what they're doing as well? They're all looking at the sleeve and they're passing it around and like, you know.
There's a level of concentration that you are giving to music that most people don't these days. Most people, it's just a soundtrack. It's just on the background. And I'm the same, you know, to a certain extent. But to put on a record and to do that, you are sort of almost like you're sort of praying at the church of music. You know, you're there. Rather than just walking about saying, "No, please, can I have this now?" You know, and you're there, you're experiencing it, and you're giving it time. And I think if we can use Spotify in that way, or use any of these streaming services in that way, then we're living in a blessed age where we can listen to so much. You know, there's records that I never would have found if I hadn't stumbled across them, and and these sort of things. So I think we are, it's easy to gripe about it, but I think we're very lucky as well in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, we've spoken about so many other people's music. We haven't spoken much about yours. So what's happening?
Well, we've got a new album coming out. Don't ask me the date. I'm not the guy with dates. But first single's out at the moment, Gaslight, and then the album's called LA Times. And it's honestly, and I'm not one for the hyperbole or the bullshit. It's the best thing we've done, I reckon, since Man Who, Visible Band era. It's just. I was talking to my son about it. Funnily enough, just a walk earlier today, and you're like that. As a band, everyone's trying to do the best. Every record you release, you're trying to do your best. But sometimes it's good, and sometimes the magic just comes. And for this one, the magic came. And Fran wrote these amazing songs, but everything just fell into place. And it's when it doesn't, it's still great. You're still making great records. And I've got albums by bands, and I'll go, that's good, that's great, that's good, that's great, that's magic. And there's something about it, and you can't choose, you can't do it. You know what I mean? And it's hard. And I was talking to Dylan. It's like you'll notice most people's first 2 or 3 albums are really, really great because they're hungry and they've got things to say. And then if they don't get a bit of success, it's really difficult to write great records. It's like nobody's on the side of the guy like lying in his luxury or sitting in his luxury yacht trying to write 10 songs. It's difficult.
Yeah.
And so every band that gets success, it becomes more and more difficult to relate. And I think this album, especially what Fran was writing, he found things to say. Amazing things to say and relevant things to say for right now. I mean, it feels it's like a classic record, but it feels very much a right now as well. And we've got no control over these things. It either happens or it doesn't, but it feels very much like it happened this time. So I'm feeling really, really blessed at the moment. It's kind of like we're in a good place. The music's great. Everyone's getting on great. We're itching because we had those years with COVID where you couldn't tour. We're itching to get out and tour again. I mean, we've toured a bit since COVID, but not properly. This will be the first time we properly tour again, and everyone's ready for it. And that's not always the case. I think you hit points where you're like, oh man, this is tiring. This is it gets harder and harder to tour sometimes because just the amount you do. But at the moment, we're all itching to get out and play, which is a really great place because we've got a really great record to play as well. So it's kind of the stars have aligned again in Travis, which is lovely.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear, mate. And big UK tour then?
Yeah. I think towards the end of the year, we're going out with the Killers in July, I think it is.
Oh, wonderful.
And I love those guys, man. Weirdly, I remember them telling me, I think the Killers, the first gig they ever played, they played a Travis song. So,
really?
So it's like, there's nice ties in there and things, and Brand, lovely. It's going to be great fun, man. That'll be a hoot, and it's their sort of they're doing like a greatest hits tour. I think they've got a greatest hits thing at the moment, so it's going to be smash after smash after smash. I watched them. We went to Leeds. I took Dylan to Leeds, and watched them at Leeds, and just the joy the Killers give people when they when they play Mr. Brightside, and you just look at a crowd, and you're just like that. This is why we do it. This is why we listen to music. It brings people together, and it's and I love seeing that. I mean, I love being on stage more, obviously, because
Yeah.
I've got an ego. But I love standing in a field, seeing how music affects people, and you just think, yeah, this is it. This is why we're here, you know.
Yeah. Oh, mate. And it's yeah. I remember watching you at Glastonbury, and you was lost in it when you play. You was playing turn.
Yeah.
And it's like it was leading up to maybe the last chorus, and I was watching you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are lost in it, mate. And it's like you got. I think you can watch that on YouTube as well. I did go back, mate. What?
Weirdly, you were talking about the Pet Shop Boys earlier. When we headlined Glastonbury, the Pet Shop Boys were on before us. And then we were standing, you know, the bit in Glastonbury in the pyramid stage, you look down at the stage, and we're standing in jeans and t-shirts looking down at the Pet Shop Boys, and they've got like dancers on, they've all got cones on their head. Yeah. Fucking hell, we're screwed here, you know what I mean? We could have followed this, and it was amazing, you know, the Pet Shop Boys. So many good songs as well. We're like, oh god,
just rattling off their 25 greatest hits.
I mean, just literally standing but it was amazing. It was such, you know, getting lost in that moment and that many people singing your songs back to you. It was just like,
took the roof off, man.
And
amazing.
The amazing thing about Glastonbury is you can't really see to the end of it, but there's some woman that puts up that crucifix at the back in a garden as a sort of, you know, I think it's sort of in opposition to all the hedonism that's going on in Glastonbury, but it's really beautiful because she lights it up and everything, and that's how you can tell where the back of the crowd is, and you're like, whoa, that's really, really far away.
Yeah.
That's a big, and I think it was one of the biggest crowds because it was the year before they built the super fence, so I think quite a few people.
It would have been.
It wasn't it? There was just people flying over the fence and everything. So, but it was pretty special that Glastonbury. But yes, I love that. I mean, I totally get lost when we play. But I mean, I think that's the way it should. You know, I think when you see people just getting caught up, and I see people in the crowd getting caught up in it, and I'm the same on stage. You know, we're different. You know, you're like that. But we're just having a good time. We're just getting into it. You know.
Yeah. Absolutely. I had it's Dave, isn't it, the guitarist from the Killers? It's Dave. Yeah. I had him on and I said, well, what's the greatest ever intro? And if anyone had the right to say Mr. Brightside, it was him because he wrote it, and he didn't choose Mr. Brightside. I'm like, come on, man.
You remember what he did choose?
What did he choose? I think he chose a Springsteen track. Can't remember for sure. But yeah, I thought, mate, you wrote the intro to Mr. Brightside.
Brightside is up there, you know, definitely. That's quite some intro. And you see, and again, as soon as that starts, everyone in the crowd's just like, whoa.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's going to be a blinding tour, mate.
That'd be fantastic, yeah.
Oh, fantastic, Andy! It's been such a joy, man. Like you've got to be the nicest band ever. I've had the best chats with you, Fran, and Dougie, man. And
you know it was really good fun picking the tracks because there were interesting sort of questions as to how to pick the tracks. You know, it really sort of dug into sort of like, you know, my life and my relationship with music. So it was a really cathartic thing for me to sort of pick things as well.
Oh, wonderful, mate. That's lovely to hear. If people want to find out about the new record and tour dates and such, where's the best place to keep up with all things Travis?
I think it's still travisonline.com. Again,
that was such guesswork there, mate.
I'm pretty sure it's travisonline.com. Google Travis and it will come up, I'm sure.
Wonderful. I'm going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.
Oh, fantastic.